I have loved doing this project because at times it seemed effortless, but also nerve-wracking. I had so much anxiety before I went up to people, but I always had the most engaging and thoughtful conversations with people, and always left the different events with a feeling of satisfaction. I also went to, other than just going to poetry readings and slams and open mic night, I was able to go to the Q&A of Lorna D. Cervantes earlier this semester, but also Jamal May, which was incredible, and as well as experiencing the Get Lit events for the first time. But through exploring all these different events and talking to different people, I realized that my original question of what's the societal purpose of poetry doesn't really matter. Instead, I've learned that poetry is a beautiful way to convey the human experience for yourself, but also within a community, at an informal gathering at Nito Burrito, or at a formal reading of a well-known poet with professors and other formal poetry lovers. It all connects us together through an expression of the human experience and the individual experience. My question attempts to justify poetry instead of just letting it exist as something that is meant to exist because humans created it and humans continue to read it and write it. My question needs to justify poetry because of how deeply capitalism is ingrained in our society. I need to find a productive purpose for poetry so that it can be profitable and I can justify it. Now, after 15 minutes of hearing everyone's take on the question, I'm not even going to answer my own question. Instead, I'm going to throw it out. Thanks for watching.
Or you can look at me, whichever you want.
So, do you think that poetry serves a social function similar to STEM majors, or is it just a pure art form?
I think that poetry can serve as a societal emotional release. You release emotion when you write it, you release emotion when you read it or hear it, and you feel other people's emotions as you experience it as a whole.
What's your name and major?
Nick, and I'm an accounting major.
Do you think that poetry serves a societal function?
That's hard for me to say. I think that with the use of technology, our society has become so reliant on visual aids, such as pictures or videos, and with texting, language has become so much about slang and abbreviations and shortening what you can say into just a certain number of characters, and I think that it kind of moves us away from the importance of the written word, literature, poetry, all of that. And so I don't think that that poetry doesn't have a place in society, but I think that with the evolution of technology and where we're going, that it's kind of fallen out of its place.
Do you think that poetry has a societal function other than just existing as an art form?
Yes, that's a great question.
That is a great question.
And I think the answer is yes. Because poetry, as it has a role as an art form, but all art, incites change because it allows minority groups and underrepresented groups to have a voice. And I myself write protest poetry occasionally, and I think that it's a back me up here.
No, I know where
A
you're
way
going.
to get ideas out that might not be heard in
And just-
other mediums.
Exactly, just as people have legislation, sorry, give me a minute. Just as people have voices in government through senators and, those politicians.
Kathy McMorris.
Kathy. They also,
Sometimes
they
I
have,
send her my poetry.
Exactly.
She's never sent me poetry back, but I'm holding out.
No, but exactly. Protest poetry, you get your voice out there. You know what protests do? They incite change, just as
I
you
already
said.
said all those words.
No, but you know what change is specifically? It's policy change. Getting your bills passed.
This is great.
Yes.
Can I
think
ask
we're
you,
done.
how many times have you been to the open mic night at Nito Burrito?
How many times have you been?
I've been 4 times.
I've been 3 times. Can we multiply that?
Yes.
12.
12. What's your name and major?
All right. I'm Connor, and I'm a psychology and English major.
Do you think that poetry serves a societal purpose?
I do. As a writer and getting back into writing, I think that writing really helps us kind of release what we're feeling and kind of helps process what we're doing. And I think poetry is one of the best ways to do that. And it's a way that we can express ourselves metaphorically and really dive into the purpose of life and what it means to be living.
Do you think poetry has a societal function other than just existing as an art form?
I think that it really does, just because I've been doing broken mic for several years now, and this is how I found most of my friends. And it's very easy to find somebody that you can relate with, especially with me, with my being queer and having depression and anxiety. There's a lot of poems about that, and so it's a way to connect with the people around you, and I think it's very interesting. And I've met a lot of really great people through poetry.
And major.
My name is Ana Luz Torres, and I am an accounting major.
Okay. So do you think that poetry serves a societal function?
I think that poetry, while you could originally just think of it as just written rhyme, I think in modern day it has a lot of different mediums that have become used for different societal purposes that people might not associate poetry with. For example, slam poetry, so spoken poetry, a lot of times can serve a political purpose and be a tool for kind of peaceful protesting for different campaigns. So, yeah, I think it does have a societal purpose.
What's your name?
Maximilian Oslin,
Okay, what's your grade?
senior.
So do you think that poetry has a societal function?
In a way, yes. As an overall society, I don't think it has a ton of effect on the way society acts, but for individuals, I believe it's a fantastic outlet and a way to communicate ideas and emotions that without it would not be able to be communicated as easily.
Do you think that poetry has a societal function other than just existing as an art form?
Yeah, I think it does have a societal function. I think it works as a cultural time marker to kind of express who we are now in a society across the different classes, races, genders, etc.
What's your name and major?
Hi, my name is Blaze George Vaughn Gemmigan-Perkow, and my major is mechanical engineering.
Do you think that poetry serves a societal function?
Yes, I believe it does. It allows people to express their own opinions. It also, I believe, helps people's mental health, because a lot of people talk about their problems, talk about stuff in their daily life and stuff that's really in their head, and poetry helps them express it, just like singing, writing songs, or painting. And I believe that poetry is an art, and it does perform a societal function, and it helps people's mental health, which I believe is even more important than their physical health, because it makes people happy, and I don't know. I think it does. Are you recording?
Yes. Do you think that poetry has a societal function other than just existing as a pure art form?
I would have to say no, personally, just not because art is bad or anything. I think art conveys a lot of meaning and a lot of it expresses emotion in a way that can't really be seen or I don't know, expressed any other way. But otherwise, I don't think poetry will do a ton. It won't, I don't know, build bridges or, I don't know, fix a lot of the problems we have. But I think it is a way to, I don't know, make people understand how you're feeling without actually going into their shoes, so to speak.
All right, I'll look at you, Eileen. I would say, to answer that first part of the question, I think poetry does exist as a pure art form, but maybe that's not the only way it should exist. That other disciplines are very important, but poetry feeds our spirit. And, oh gosh, I don't want to cry. I started to also say that this young man's poetry tonight is very different than most poetry I grew up with. And it made me, some of it was pretty grim. And it kind of took my breath away. The subjects were sad, but very, what's the word? Current's not the right word, but current will do. And I thought, the last poetry I read, I have a little book at home called 100 Best Loved Poems. And so, By the Shores of Gitche Gumee still means something to me, but this is so much more immediate. And I'm really rather surprised at myself for having liked that as much as I did. But I really did enjoy listening to him. And that was part of it too, his delivery. I don't know whether it would have touched me as much to read it on my own, but maybe having heard how he read it, if I were to read some of his poetry, I would try to capture that rhythm and that passion. And so I am so glad you made me come. You didn't make me come, but you invited me.
Poetry serves a function of a social function as well as an artistic function. I definitely feel it serves an artistic function. I grew up, I'm an English major, liberal arts major, and that's where I first understood its place in the world. But I believe, particularly right now in the world we're living in, it serves a very important social function because, as we just heard tonight, a poem can be playful, it can also be very political. And I'm, as a reader and a writer, something I often am discouraged by is when people say, well, no one reads anymore. Well, it's not true. We read all the time. We actually read all day on Facebook and email and everything else we're doing, and whether or not you're reading newspapers and magazines. And I feel like what poetry can do right now to a nation that's distracted and distractible and has so much coming in, it's a way to distill conversations and to distill emotions and connections among people. So I think it's a wonderful part of our culture.
While I'm an English major, I wouldn't say that poetry is my favorite thing to study in the English classroom. While I do love hearing it spoken out loud and I really enjoy reading it on my own free time, I often struggle writing about it in an academic setting. It seems something far too personal for me to explore in my own words in a 5-page essay on a Word document. So that's why I decided to explore poetry through my project this semester. I thought that it would be really awesome to make a documentary talking to other people about poetry, specifically what the societal function of poetry is. Is it just an art form, or does it serve a larger purpose within society? So I decided to make a documentary. I also wanted to push myself and go outside of my comfort zone because I often struggle engaging with strangers, but I think that the most valuable exploration would be for me to talk to a wide variety of people at different events and different things. And so I decided to ask different people around Spokane, what is the societal purpose of poetry? And I was able to record their responses. Just as a warning, this is a very rudimentary video. It's my first documentary, first time ever using iMovie, so there's going to be some weird background noises and some weird framing, but I am actually really excited with how it turned out. So here we go.